The mirror of an era, hidden in a name.
A name is more than just a label. It is a vessel that holds the aspirations and pains of those living in that era, as well as the social order of the time. This phenomenon of instrumentalizing a child's name to express a preference for a different gender reveals the deep-seated patriarchy of the past. Just a few decades ago in Korea, such traces were common. There were names like Kyungja and Youngja and Sunja given to daughters even though they ended with the character Ja, which means son. It was a sad landscape where the desperate desire of parents to have a son next time overshadowed the identity of their young daughter. Judea 2,000 years ago was no different. At that time, the most common name which carried the most stories was undoubtedly Mary. When reading the Bible, readers often fall into deep confusion. One Mary seems like another, and the women appearing in every event feel like the same person. Within the vast narrative of the Gospels, the name Mary exists like a dense fog. We must first clear this fog. At least 5 Marys appear in the Bible. There is Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Mary of Bethany, who wept over the death of Lazarus, and Mary, the mother of Mark John, also called Salome, and Mary of Clopas, the mother of James the Less, and Joseph, and finally Mary Magdalene, whose unfair reputation we must clear today. They each stood in different places in life, but history later showed the cruelty of mixing their faces into one.
A revolutionary perspective, standing by the outcasts.
Jewish society at the time of Jesus was incredibly cold toward women. A woman could not be a legal witness. She was a shadow-like existence, not even counted in the census. Although the laws of Deuteronomy contained provisions to protect women's rights, Jewish men in reality did not view women as independent individuals. The nameless women appearing throughout the Gospels represent the sadness of the anonymity women faced back then. However, the path Jesus took was provocative. He tore down the solid walls of discrimination built by the world and invited marginalized women into the center of humanity. He showed affectionate interest in the lives of the woman caught in adultery, whom everyone tried to stone, and the prostitute everyone pointed at, and the Samaritan and foreign women, whom even fellow Jews treated like animals. In a world where women were treated as property, Jesus' gaze restored their stolen humanity. While the Bible mainly highlights the male group of the 12 disciples, women followed the path of Jesus silently in the background. Matthew 27 records that many women were there watching from a distance, who had followed Jesus from Galilee to minister to him. They did not turn away from the pain of the Lord and stayed by the cross. At the very front of that group was always Mary Magdalene.
A strong soul rising above 7 demons.
Mary Magdalene was from Magdala, a wealthy city on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee. She was a rare woman who was not defined as someone's wife or mother. The Bible introduces her as a woman who had been possessed by 7 demons. In the Bible, the number 7 signifies completeness. This implies that her spirit and body were completely destroyed, and she was in a state of utter despair, unable to control herself. Her liberation from these 7 demons was not just a medical cure, but a complete restoration of her human dignity. Empowered by this grace, she transitioned from a victim of spiritual darkness to a courageous leader who supported the movement with her own means. It was Jesus who pulled her out of that dark pit when she was no different from an orphan. The healing went beyond simply curing a disease and gifted her a new life. Since then, Mary Magdalene staked her entire life on the Lord. According to Luke 8, she served Jesus and the disciples with her own resources. She was not a passive follower, but a reliable supporter and a proactive leader of the Jesus movement. Her true worth shone brilliantly at the darkest moment. While the male disciples fled to save themselves at the scene of the cross, where Jesus suffered, she stayed until the end of that cruel death. After Jesus was buried, the disciples hid behind locked doors for fear of persecution. But she went to the tomb in the dim dawn to apply spices to the body of the Lord. She did not fear hardship or death. She overcame everything with her love for the Lord.
The first witness of the resurrection and the apostle to the apostles.
The person who decorated the first page of the resurrection, which is the core of Christian faith, was not Peter or John. It was Mary Magdalene. After Jesus rose, he called her name first in the world, Mary. In that short call lay the comfort for all the sorrow and devotion she had endured. God chose a woman's voice to proclaim the most pivotal moment in human history, fundamentally redefining the concept of spiritual authority. She was entrusted with the weighty mission of delivering the news of the resurrection to the apostles. Therefore, that the early church fathers called her the apostle, sent to the apostles, or apostola apostolorum. The fact that Matthew and Mark and Luke and John all recorded her as the first witness of the resurrection proves how absolute her influence was within the church at the time. Scholars like Louise Chatroff evaluate that she was a powerful female leader comparable to Peter.
The year 591, a planned misunderstanding and distortion.
But how did the name of this brilliant female leader suddenly become covered in the stigma of a prostitute? The tragedy began in the year 591 with a sermon by Pope Gregory I of Rome. This fabrication was not a mere mistake, but a calculated theological tool designed to solidify the necessity of priestly absolution. At that time, illiteracy was high in Europe, and the Bible was like a sealed book that only a tiny elite could read. The public believed and accepted the interpretation coming from the mouth of the Pope as the voice of God. Gregory I established strong papal authority and encouraged confession. For this, he needed a dramatic model of repentance. He interpreted Mary Magdalene as the epitome of repentance. Unfortunately, he cleverly mixed three women appearing in the Bible. He defined Mary Magdalene, who was possessed by 7 demons, and Mary of Bethany, and the sinful woman appearing in Luke 7 as the same person. He proclaimed,
"The 7 demons that possessed Mary Magdalene were the 7 deadly sins, and the greatest among them was sexual immorality."
He described even the perfume she intended to apply to the body as a tool of a prostitute used to seduce men in the past. Nowhere in the Bible is demon possession linked to immorality. But this one word from the Pope became an unchanging rule for 1400 years.
The cruel frame, reproduced by art.
Once fixed prejudice became even more solid through the clothing of art. From the Middle Ages through the Renaissance to the modern era, countless painters depicted Mary Magdalene as a prostitute in red clothes, with her hair down, weeping in repentance. When religious authority meets artistic imagination, a fiction can easily become a permanent truth in the public mind. This visual branding has made it nearly impossible for the historical Mary to emerge from the shadow of the cinematic and artistic prostitute. This distortion did not stop even in the 20th century. From the novel by Nikos Kazantzakis and the movie by Martin Scorsese to the globally popular musical, Jesus Christ Superstar, popular culture still trapped her in the frame of a sinful woman in a mysterious relationship with Jesus. This massive gaslighting that continued for 1400 years pushed her great faith and leadership to the back of history.
Conclusion, calling her name once again.
We must now wake up from the long sleep of 1400 years and face the truth. Mary Magdalene was never a prostitute. She was not an immoral woman who committed 7 deadly sins. She was a devoted supporter who served the Lord with everything she had, and a brave witness who guarded the tomb alone when everyone else trembled in fear. Restoring her identity is not just a matter of historical justice, but a spiritual duty to honor the truth of the gospel. Interpreting her life anew is not just about restoring a person of the past. It is about finding the many hidden truths of history and correcting our gaze that was trapped in prejudice. Mary Magdalene is no longer a sinner with a shameful stigma. She was a great apostle who loved more passionately than anyone, and witnessed the truth before anyone else. It is time to return her name to its original shining place.
Logos Global Academy currently streams in 11 languages and is expanding to over 20 languages to reach every corner of the globe. Please subscribe and become a member to empower this massive global mission. Thank you so much.